My name is Mason Hemphill. I drive a 2001 Honda S2000. Probably my granddad. He used to always be tinkering on stuff, and we'd go visit, and I'd be checking out everything in his basement, all the tools and different stuff, and all the different, like, the oils that would stink were kind of weird, and I just thought it was real interesting. We used to go to antique car shows every year, and that was always a good time, so it just kind of grew on me. I wanted something a little bit different. I had a couple of buddies in high school that had them, and they didn't really do much with them, and it kind of broke my heart. So I really wanted to get one and just put my own personality into it. Finally, that's what happened. So my favorite mods on the car, first is probably the intake manifold. It's an all-in fab intake manifold. It was a prototype. One of two prototypes. This particular one has a vacuum block, so I can make the car fully functional. So really it's one of one, and then we further modified it to accommodate a whole lot of other things that I wanted to keep. And that intake manifold required a whole lot of overhauling the bay. All of the AN lines and fittings, there's so much that has been repolished. A couple little custom brackets have been made just to hide things and keep things strong. Custom radiator, tucked radiator. There's a whole lot that had to happen to make the intake manifold happen. And so I've kind of been stashing that thing since 2016, 2017, and then finally, 7 years later, it's on the car. So I had big plans for that for a long time. So that was a big deal for me. My next favorite thing, a lot of people love air suspension, but I love it for not only the reasons that most people love it. I love it because I can just be fully functional, and I can choose if I want to be, driving aired up and not scrape. Most people do that. I choose to drag it. Whatever. I think it's cool. That's what got me into like low cars anyways, just dragging your car, and that's what I kind of liked about being static, but I also did not like the bad things about being static, like the damage that would occur to all the carbon stuff on the bottom, and it would get really expensive. There's a lot of really rare carbon parts, the JDM parts, the carbon hardtop, the trunk, the whole front end, the seats, the roll bar. It's all really pretty rare stuff. It's all JDM stuff, and that's where my heart is really at in these cars. Staying kind of true to their nature, but then putting a lot of like modern twist on things. One thing that I really like that's unique is the headlights. They have like the jewel eyes that have been put in them by Diamond Light Works, and they have all the features, the demon eyes, the switchbacks, all the different cool stuff. And I feel like, in modern times, if S2000s were reproduced today, they would also have the jewels, just like the MDX, the RDX, all those cars. I feel like this car kind of belongs with jewels. So I feel like it's a big modification, but it belongs on the car. And also he custom tailored them to match the color of the car, which is really great. He did that without even charging me anything, asking for anything extra. So I really appreciate his work on those. What other mods? The Supercharger is awesome. That's a lot of fun. I was reminiscing about when I first got the car. People were, because it was pretty rough, a lot of people were asking, what I was going to do with the car, because I had little exhaust on it, but it wasn't really modified. I said, oh yeah, I'm going to get a Comtech intake. And then next thing you know, show up, pop the hood, Comtech Supercharger, and people are like, oh, Comtech intake, gotcha. So I just kind of like that little stuff. And I kind of like to keep secrets for a long time, like the intake. Nobody knew I had the Supercharger for a long time until it finally just showed up on the car. The front bumper I had for years. I actually met up with a guy in Arkansas. He was from Georgia, and we were just crossing paths. We met up in Arkansas after being in talks with this bumper for years, and I wanted this thing from him. And I was visiting my parents, and he was driving his family across country, and we met at my parents' house, and I got this bumper from him, and I've had that for probably 3-4 years. There's just been so many things like that that and I have a lot more stuff tucked away, but I'm not gonna bring any of that stuff up because that's kind of how we roll. And a lot of the stuff happened very luckily. My car was at paint, and I was getting the car back in like 6 or 7 days, and the day after I get it back, we were taking off to a big car club event in California, and I didn't have wheels. I found some wheels on eBay. They were pretty close to what I thought they were gonna fit, and they showed up the day before I got my car back. I got the car back, threw the wheels on, and I was like, all right, let's go. And they rubbed, had 285s on the back, and that was rough, but meaty tire all the way to Cali and back. Man, there's just so many unique things that people just don't see, and people don't see on S2000s. And those are really the things that I like the most. You know, there's a lot of people that have like Voltex bumpers or, you know, throw a big wing on it. I just have a different style. I want something that people don't have, something that people can't have, because some of these parts are discontinued. You cannot get them. I just like being unique, and I like being difficult to copy. The color combo of the carbon fiber and the orange, the House of Kolor Tangelo Orange Pearl. I mean, it's a classic hot rod color. You can't go wrong. And then mixed with the carbon fiber, put on a unique build like this, it's just part of what makes the car what it is. So I've had 5 S2000s up till now. My first one kind of happened through an insurance deal with my first truck that I lost in a fire. But it's kind of a big, long story. But I'd kind of given up on the car. I'd seen it for sale, but I thought that it was just gone. I didn't make a move quickly enough, and then sure enough, it was gone. And I was only 17 at the time, so I didn't really have control of my bank account to that extent. But I'd been saving a lot of money and got some money back from my truck, and then it was like the day before Christmas. Me and my dad were gonna drive down to see my sister, and my dad was asking me if I could help him with his Taurus. He had said he had battery issue or something like that. It's like a story. So I go down in the garage, open the door, and to help my dad with his car and jump his Taurus. And here's my mom over here, here's my dad over here, and here's this black S2000 right in the middle. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was such an amazing moment. Because it also gave closure to the fire that we had, and we lost a lot of things. So it was like a really huge moment, and moving forward, had this car that I thought that I was not going to be able to afford, but it literally took every penny I had, but it was mine, and that was huge. So I fell in love with that car. I had that car for about 8 years, and it was beautiful. It was Berlina black. And it was just very, very clean. The only modifications on it were some of the JDM modifications that I had learned about from the original S2000 owners on the forums. And it was just a very clean, modest car. But through that time, there were a lot of things that I'd wish that I could do to the car, but it was just too clean. And I just couldn't bring myself to cut fenders or anything like that. I didn't feel it was right for that car. So 8 years or so went by, and then one night I got in an accident, and I totaled the car. Basically my high school sweetheart was gone, and that was a really tough thing to get through. I couldn't really function well without an S2000, as odd as that sounds, as long as it had been in my life. So as soon as I was able to keep my balance again and function, I was on the hunt. I thought I was gonna buy one out of California, but that one slipped right out underneath my fingers, and I had mentioned that to somebody else. He said, well, what about this one that's over here in Peoria or something? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I looked it up. Sure enough, there was one. It was cheap, it was beat, it was the perfect car for me because I had plans. So it was 6 colors. It was kind of a mess when I got it, no interior. It was less than stock. I got it back to stock, put a full AP1 interior into it, and then got it basically stock in to a complete car again. Then I started like overhauling the whole thing. It's got AP2 interior now. The body has all been modified. The fenders all been cut. The J's Racing front end, the Spoon Sports rear over fenders. You know, all the carbon and stuff. So everything that I had visioned for this car had eventually come through. And then throughout this time, there was another car that showed up. Somebody had asked me to put an engine in their S2000. I work on tons of S2000. Somebody wanted me to put an engine in theirs. I didn't have an engine, but I found a car that had one. So me and him split the cost of this parts car. I bought this parts car and for the engine in his car, which basically paid most of the car for me. So the rest of the car, I just parted out and I did all right. Paid for the expense and storage and stuff. So after that, when I made some money back off of that, I bought another a red S2000. It was very rough. I had that for a while, piecing it back together, and eventually put that thing back together, and it was cherry. It was a beautiful car. And what was unfortunate about that car is I bought it to drive as a weekend car, because obviously this car is not the easiest thing to just hop in and drive. You know, granted I drive it a lot, but it's not just a casual weekend car, hop in, go get groceries type of thing. Sometimes it can be a process with more modified cars. But what stinks is that red car was too clean. That's what sucks. I wanted to drive it, but I was afraid to drive it just because it was too beautiful by the time I was done with it. So it sat and sat. I had that car, I put maybe 100 miles on it in 5-6 years or something like that. And then I made a deal with somebody and it was gone. So so that was number 4. And then it's not too long ago, there was another guy who wanted me to fix up his S2000. It was a 309,000 mile car. He was the original owner. And we both kind of agreed that he didn't keep up the maintenance enough, and it was probably not going to be worth his time and money and investment to put the car back together, in a good shape. So we kind of made a little horse trade, and it's off to the races again. The big thing with me here lately is the past few years since I've had my son is being able to incorporate him into every part of my life. So he goes to every show with me that I can take him to. He goes out of town with me. He is my ride or die. He goes everywhere. So being that he goes to car shows with me, I really want him to really take the next step and just start learning to work on these things. So I really want us to have this project that we can get in together, and it may not be his first car. I don't think we'll keep it another 13 years for him to drive, but I mean, who knows, but it's possible. But I would like for him to get into this kind of stuff with me. I think it's a great thing for kids to get into, especially from a young age, and keep them on a good track and keep them learning and keep them thinking creatively and being able to really think through how things work. So that's really, that was really the driving factor for the most part for the last vehicle. Because I can't really have him working on customer cars with me. And with the show car, we would love that, but also it comes with its own risks, right? So I just really wanted something that we could work on together and we could just continue our bond. The most important thing to me, even though most of my time is cars, the most important thing to me is my son. And if you've ever been around me, this is one of the only times that I do not have him with me. But I'm actually picking him up after this. So so that's what's important to me, is being able to really incorporate my son into all aspects of my life and get him started in the right direction. So it's weird how all these different cars came about, but they all kind of had their own purpose, had their own reason, and they all just kind of showed up on their own way. No two have come up in my hands the same way, which is very interesting. Most people shop, Marketplace or something, or eBay Motors, or know a guy, or dealers, but they've all come just very sporadically and so organically. So yeah, they just all feel, I feel like they've all belonged to me. And they just feel at home, I guess. So yeah, 5 S2000s.